everybody, to another episode of Talking Nerdy in the Bedroom with me and the GWF folks. It's the God, I don't know how many times we've done this. 4, 5? I don't remember. But we've got Amber here with us again, who was Daphne, and then we've just talked about that she was some other people that may or may not have been for GWF. We have Dennis joining us, who has been with us every single time, so thank you, Dennis. The president slash everything for GWF for many years. And then for the first time ever, we have Aaron joining us, who I've known off and on for so many years, from WDW, WWA, GWF, so many of those. WME, yep, I forgot, yep, WME. And then obviously mostly GWF, because Snitsky for many years. Wade Barrett. Who was the other one? I'm forgetting.
Drew McIntyre. Paul London and Brian Kendrick.
Yeah. Although Drew McIntyre right now would be a fun character to play.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yes, that definitely would. I love his heel persona right now.
Oh, his heel persona, where he thinks he's a face, is hysterical to me. Everything he's doing with Punk right now is just phenomenal. Yeah. So, Aaron, because you're new to the podcast, I'm going to ask you some questions. Feel free to dive into as much as you want. So I asked everybody throughout the times that we've been talking, what got you into e-fetting? Like, how did it first come about? Like, for me, it was a random person messaging my sister, who then eventually got me interested in it, and then I took the ball and ran. And it was mostly because, obviously, all of us huge wrestling fans. But what got you interested in it? How did you first learn about it?
I think it was through Yahoo, honestly. One of them Yahoo boards was and I just cannot remember the name of. I think it was HWA, and I was Edge.
Edge?
Yeah.
So if you were Edge back then, that had to have been like during his initial run with either him and Christian, or right when he went on a singles run?
I think it was 2000, actually.
2000? Oh, God. Yeah, so he was still with Christian at that time.
Yeah.
I don't even think we got to the first TLC match at that time. 2000? Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Do you remember, not remember any role plays, because we're talking about now 25, 24 years ago, but do you remember, because Dennis and I have talked at it at length for, like, the length of role plays that used to be? Because I remember my first one might have been 6 paragraphs long. Dennis remembers them being 1 paragraph long. Like, do you remember that time of the e-feds, of how much you were doing?
Yeah, I was doing like maybe a paragraph, probably.
Yeah. Did you ever own an e-fed? Did you ever try to do that side of it?
No, because I didn't have no graphic design or nothing, so I did not.
You did not. How many at one time? What was the most amount of e-feds you were in?
Maybe 3.
3? Oh, okay. Because I knew at one point when I was super into it, I want to say I was in like 12, which was too many. But it was also at a time where, if I combined all those 12 role plays, it basically became one of my Canyon role plays later on. Like, they weren't long. It was mostly like, hey, this person's in a backstage interview, I talked for a paragraph or 2, and then that was the end of the role play. So it really wasn't that bad. But when you think back at it, you're like, oh my God, why was I in 12? That's too many. Just focus on like 1, maybe 2, but yeah, no. So we talked about it last time, and I loved everybody's memories. So for GWF, well, let me ask this first question first. Why the hell did you pick Snitsky?
Because I loved whenever he punted the baby. I love that. That drew me to him, and I knew I could just right then and there. I love that. I love that.
Good to know. Good to know that Snitsky's out there kicking babies, and you're like, yes, this is my guy. This is my guy right here. Oh, it's too funny. Was it because you joined? If I remember correctly, you were in GWF before I was. Um, I'm
I think
pretty.
my first initial was Paul London and Brian Kendrick.
And were you them because you liked them? Because I know, like myself and Dave at the time, picking characters was awful because GWF was thumping back in the day, and there was like 120 something people on the roster. So it basically became, who the hell do I pick?
Right, yeah, because I mean Triple H is gone, Undertaker. I love Paul and them, and at the time, whenever I picked them, they weren't doing much anyways.
Yeah,
Right before they won the tag title with them.
gotcha. Um, so now with Snitsky's character, have, you kept him basically from the time that I knew that you were in GWF till the time that we closed GWF. You kept him that entire time. Was there a reason that like I can't let go of this character besides
Yeah,
for kicking the baby?
because I didn't want nobody taking them and maybe winning the world title with them or something.
I get that. That would piss me off too if I never won it with Canyon and I left and then come back somebody's Canyon and he's winning world titles and be like, this son of a bitch, that was mine. Um, so Dave should be joining in a second, by the way, he just messaged me. But I'm wondering, for you, like, do you have any fond memories of GWF of like things your character did or things the Fed did or anything else?
Uh, winning, well, I think I won Money in the Bank with Drew McIntyre and Wade Barrett. Actually,
I
I
think
thought
that's right.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Do you have a storyline that you remember that you were in?
Mm, Me and Dave did a lot. I'm not like Snitsky and I know Canyon and Paul Burchill, but Snitsky and Paul Burchill was pretty. I don't really remember a lot of. It
I
was
know I
hit
feel
and
like
miss.
I should have sent you these questions ahead of time to give you time to think, but I was like, screw it. Nope. Let's just ask, see what he remembers off the top of his head. Um, I always so my first memory of you, even though it's not the first time that we ever talked, but my first memory was way back in I want to say it was WDW when you finally won the world title as was it
Eddie Guerrero.
yeah. And it was funny because I remember with Mick and I, because Mick was the other owner, um, talking about you and being like, I think he deserves to be in the match. We don't know necessarily if he'll win or not, but he's earned his spot in this triple threat match at WrestleMania or whatever our big pay per view was. And then I remember reading everybody's role play and Mick and I messaging each other almost simultaneously, and they're like, "Holy shit, I think Aaron won." And we're like, "No, we got to read this shit again because I don't remember who you were against. It was Rikishi and
Eddie. I don't even remember either. I don't remember either.
it was Rikishi. I don't remember who the other guy was. But we read them and we were just like, shit. Oh, people are gonna be pissed off about this. And yeah, that's what we wrote for the results was you winning because there are some times where your role plays are just spot on. Other times not, but that's everybody. But when you hit, man, you hit. And that Eddie Guerrero one, I was just like, well, that's just better. Like it was better written. It was a better. I don't remember what the hell it was now because you're talking about however many years ago. But I was like, it's better written. It's a better story. It didn't drown on and on and on, just saying the same old stuff. And I was just like, all right, good for Aaron. And then I remember with GWF and then kind of taking over and running that and us having like you obviously you won the world title with Barrett, I think with McIntyre too, right? Both of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I won both of them.
Yeah. So I remember you doing that and I was just like, huh, I wonder if he's ever going to get the chance to do with Snitsky. And then you did, and then I screwed you.
Yeah,
I definitely did that. That's my bad.
I'm seeing Dreamer in here too. Is that does that ring a
right,
bell?
right.
That's your
Yep.
money in the bank. Dreamer and Barrett.
Oh, it was
Oh,
Dreamer and Barrett. That's right. Gotcha. Yeah, Dennis still has a lot of the old shit because Dennis is a bit of a hoarder when it comes to
right.
GWF, which I appreciate.
It was Tommy Dreamer. Yep. I was thinking it was Drew McIntyre. I know I won the world title with Drew McIntyre.
Dennis could probably look that up too.
You did. Yes, you won the world title twice as Drew McIntyre.
Well, there you go.
See, because I have the site running.
Oh, that's
from
right.
when I last backed it up, so I have the full champions list here,
Not the-
and it's quite the
I'll
list.
interrupt, but just want to announce that I'm here.
I saw you, Dave. Don't you worry.
Okay.
But yeah, so you don't have the full thing. Remember, I think when you
It's like missing 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. Yeah, my world title there of taking your world title, Aaron, is not on there. So there you go. It's not even on the books.
It never happened.
Never happened.
It never happened.
It's just an anybody's thing.
Speaking of women's champ belts here in the chat, I think we should acknowledge that Aaron had won the women's title 7 times.
Damn.
Compared
hell were
to
you?
KJ's 0.
Mickey James. I'm pretty sure it was Mickey James.
And Lita.
Lita. Oh, damn. Who had 0? What did you say?
Didn't you say that was the one title you were missing? Oh,
no,
it's
that was
Canyon.
one time. That was one title I was missing with
Got
Canyon.
it.
Everything else, Canyon won.
You know what? I like the way I said it better. Sorry.
I was gonna say I was like Miss Brooks for a while, and she won that title. Tried to get that women's division going, it never really took off. Like it's just dominated by men. Amber was like one of the few people that dominated.
Though,
What's that?
It's kind of E-Feds in a nutshell. There's hardly any actual women.
Let's be clear. It's wrestling in a nutshell. There are women.
Yes, for
but
sure.
There was like a 20-to-1 ratio at WrestleMania. About 20-to-1.
Yeah, it makes sense. From my experience, that's true too.
Yeah, it was bad. And it was so funny because you always see a line outside of the women's room, right? Never at the men's. Yeah,
sure.
Screw that at WrestleMania. There's a line around the freaking arena because of men, and there's none for the women's because there's so few of them compared to the men. It's crazy.
Jealous.
Finally, we win. Now you know what it's like.
Too funny. So Aaron mentioned for Dave, who just joined, that he remembers some feuds with you, but doesn't remember the feuds themselves. Do you remember any feuds with Snitsky, Tommy Dreamer, Drew McIntyre, Wade Barrett?
Definitely Snitsky, right? Because he was around forever, and then Burchell was around forever. They obviously had many matches. Exact feuds, I have a hard time remembering, though. Yes,
it's because we're old. It's okay.
But a million matches for sure.
And then Aaron was talking about, which I think might have been the same thing for you, because it definitely was for me. Like one of the reasons to not drop this character was because you want to be the one to win the world title with them. You don't want to see anybody else ruin this character.
Sure.
And I definitely felt that way with Canyon. Definitely Aaron felt that way about Snitsky. I'm assuming you did with Burchell.
Yeah, although at the same time, I would say with all 3 of those guys that nobody else would pick them up, so it's kind of ironic.
Hey, man, everybody loves Canyon. Who better? Come on now.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, definitely like there's a kind of protection of your character, yes, for sure.
Which is weird to feel that like connection with them and feel like you need to protect that character and that thing that you've created, that it's completely fake. It's a really weird thing, but I would feel some type of way if I'm seeing somebody else role play as Canyon and it's just god awful, or they're making him do things I wouldn't make him do.
Yeah, I mean, I've barely seen anyone even write as Burchell anywhere else. Forget GWF. It's happened like here and there, but pretty rare occurrence. So I assume the same for Canyon and Snitsky. I don't know.
Burchell for me was the pirate. I remember seeing lots of pirates, but as soon as that gimmick went away, that was it. And most people's pirates gimmick were awful. Like they just did the same old thing over and over, the stereotypical pirate stuff. But as soon as that gimmick got done, I think I remember 2, and one of them being yours. Like it just wasn't a character that resonated with people. Although, wait, I should say 3. You did a little bit of like the incest angle, and I remember reading somebody's in another fed that went full blown, like you were reading. And I was just like, I guess this is a role play.
It's
Yeah.
funny you mention that, yeah, because it was never really too blatant, right? Because when you do it so blatant, it kind of just becomes, what's the point?
Right. I agree. And if it was
Um,
on TV, it wouldn't be blatant. But this one I was reading was literally like just pulled off of like some erotic novel, and they're like
yeah,
Virgil and Katie Leah, and I was like, all right.
yeah. People lack subtlety in e-feds, so
Subtlety it can go a long way. So Aaron, for your Snitsky role plays, do you have any that you remember off the top of your head that was like one of your favorites of like what the either theme or premise of a role play was or what match it was?
Man, where it's been so long, honestly, I cannot remember.
That's fair.
Like I
Although
know.
I'll probably have Dennis, or I'll send you the link later so that you can actually see, like, because some of the websites back up and some of the hosting is back up.
Oh, okay. I know I mean, obviously he's known for It Wasn't My Fault, but then whenever he was in ECW 2008, yeah, whenever they reinvented ECW and he did the yellow teeth and stuff, the monster gimmick,
Yeah,
I kind of remember a little bit of, I tried to do a version of that.
yeah. It's always good to keep characters fresh. I know, like, obviously Dave had Bercho who did the pirate gimmick, and then the straight face kind of gimmick, and then the incest gimmick, and then the oh my
The
god
Ripper,
brutal gimmick.
I remember the Ripper,
Yeah,
Paul Burchill.
yeah. That was the brutal one, I believe. Is that the one that you stabbed Richards in the
yeah.
eye?
Although that was Ash's idea, but yes, he basically gouged his eye out more or less with a
Yeah,
key. Yeah,
that sounds like Ash. Um,
right.
anything for a story. Um, but yeah, so if you can't, especially when you're talking about like, so I had Canyon for 8, 9 years. Uh, Aaron, it sounds like you had Snitsky for 10, Dave Bercho probably around 8 or 9 as well.
Yeah, about 8.
Yeah. So like you gotta keep things like fresh. Um, and Amber, I don't remember, but so for Daphne, um, do you remember reinventing her at all with it, or
Um,
just still like the straight Daphne that was what everybody saw?
so I had like a therapist character, which was kind of based off like Poison Ivy. Like I think I even called her like Dr. Isley. So it was always kind of up in the air whether she was real or not. And then like at one point, Dave and I teamed together, where we were Stevie Richards and Daphne. And that was a lot of fun for a bit. Um, so she kind of fluctuated, but I was thinking about how, as you continue to work on these characters and your storylines grow deeper and deeper, it's less like it almost becomes you're not being the wrestler anymore, but your version of that wrestler and all the history that comes along with it. So it's also kind of interesting because I took over characters at various points that had like dropped out because I thought they were interesting. Like I remember playing Brian Kendrick and he was like a big stoner in my role plays, which was different than like what you had done with him. But it was also like you'd have to know the legacy of that character in GWF versus like what that person has done as a wrestler. So it's kind of interesting because like whether you're giving up the lineage of your character and having to see somebody else ruin it in some cases or just be different with it, or if you are taking on a character, it's a different type of responsibility in a way. It's weird.
It should be, although there are definitely some people out there that didn't care. They just wanted that character so they could like do their own thing with them or just copy kind of what was on TV.
Right.
I know, I want to say his name was Jack Donnelly, which Dennis might remember. He was Randy Orton and did a shit ton of stuff. And he was super protective of his character, but then went away for like 2 years. And I was like, we got to do something, bud. Like, I can create a new Randy Orton roster page for this new Randy Orton, but we got to like it's 2 years. If you're not going to come back, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm fine if you give them somebody else as long as they have their own like roster page and accomplishments and yada yada. But that character definitely got, I don't want to say ruined, but it wasn't anything like Jax because it ended up being Kevin Mc something McAlmond. I don't remember.
McDermott?
No, not Kevin McDermott. That's the old That's the owner. That's GWF owner. Wasn't him. Like McAllman, he created a bunch of like wiki pages for a bunch of eFeds that he was in, including GWF.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's a
know what I'm
character.
talking about?
He would have a hard time winning a match, but he would never. That guy would never go away. He would never give up.
Yeah, he always role played. He always tried to help when he could, but it wasn't good. But he definitely tried. And he was super into it, hence creating all those wiki pages or ETHED wiki pages, whatever the hell they were called. And he had a bunch of like information about all the characters and title reigns and everything. Like he did his research on a lot of stuff. Which you would have thought would have potentially translated over to other things, but some people get it, some people don't, but it's still fun. And as long as he was still having fun, he won some titles. He enjoyed himself, but it definitely wasn't, as Amber was talking about, like that lineage was gone as soon as he took over that character. There was no, hey, I've won the Royal Rumble twice in a row. I've won the world title. I've headlined WrestleMania. It was like almost a completely different Orton that you saw on TV, not the GWF Randy Orton. So it's funny. I never really thought about that responsibility of taking over somebody's character because in other eFeds that I joined, I don't know what's happening in the past. Like if I was already a part of that eFed and somebody was Stone Cold and then I got to watch what Stone Cold did and then I took over, I'd probably try to keep that up. But if somebody just send me an invite, they're like, hey, I'd like you to join the Fed, and I join it, I have no idea. I'm not going to go back and read a bunch of stuff that have nothing to do with me or what's going on currently. At least that was my mentality then. It probably should have been, I should go read this and be able to like pick up where this character left off. But I don't think you really, or at least I wasn't thinking about that at the time. So it's interesting, Amber, that that was one of your mindsets of like, hey, I kind of want to take over this character because it was fun.
Yeah. Well, and I also think GWF operated a little bit differently because you did have those roster pages that had all that information. So it was easier in a way to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely easier to see the accomplishments. And all of our results were very readily accessible. Well, I shouldn't say all. All of our pay-per-views were, if you just change the link from 2K1 to 2K2 to 2K3 to 2K4, we made that very easy. But the Raw and Thunder results, like we only had what, like I want to say 10 down on a page, but then if you wanted the ones beyond that, you're kind of screwed. Unless you were to ask me like, hey, what is the link for it, then I could send it to you. Because even though you like upload it and it's the same file name every time, it uploaded differently because Dennis wanted to be difficult. And it always like changed certain numbers. I could never figure out the pattern. And then I was just like, I don't care anymore. Screw it. Who cares?
I think it was based on the date is what it was. But
see, I want to say I looked at it like it was the date, but maybe I'm just stupid. It could be that.
I think it's like a Unix date, not like a legitimate date that you would read.
Oh,
but
well, that doesn't help me.
I think it's just a long string of numbers from it's like the time from the epic. It's number of seconds from the epic or something. So it gave it its own like unique ID, which
it did
behind the scenes made it easier.
So Aaron, I remember asking Dave and Amber and then Bear and everybody else what was the reason that you stayed in GWF? Because obviously at that time there was a ton of other feds out there that we've talked about, from WME to WDW to WWA to WIW to so many others that I can't even think of. What made you stay with GWF?
There was nothing like it. I mean, the graphics, it was one of a kind. And the flashes, like, you weren't seeing that. Yeah, maybe WME. You did stuff in WDW, but
Well, we didn't though. That was Mick getting a hold of Dennis and being like, "Hey, Dennis, you wanna I got this fed. Would you like to create some videos for it?" And Dennis is like, okay, sure, why not? I got nothing else to do. I don't know if WME was the same or not. Did WME ever get a hold of you, Dennis?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So most of those that you saw was just Dennis.
Most of those were like my reject ideas where I didn't have a full flushed out idea. I just had a snippet of like of the flash intro videos. They were usually like 10 to 20 seconds depending on factors. sometimes I'd have like a half a second to a second idea of like, I could see this happening, but I could never flush out the rest. So then I would just like, all right, here, I'll put that one idea I had in here. I'll make it repeat a couple times. I'll throw the words in here. Here you go. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Dennis was kind of sounds like the go-to person for a lot of feds. Like once somebody saw GWF and they're like, well, they have this. Like, how do we get that ourselves? How do we go about that? And I think one of the reasons that people reached out to him too is because they also didn't know he was pretending to be Kevin either. Like, so they were thinking like Kevin ran the thing and Dennis just works on graphics all day. He doesn't do any of the other shit. So if I reached out to him, why wouldn't he say yes? I mean, he's not doing anything else. He's barely helping with the Fed. He's just creating graphics, not literally doing everything from top to bottom. So that works.
And I didn't mind. Part of me knew, right? So like, well, I'm giving them these things and it makes them look better, or maybe they're going to poach people. But I knew they would get stale, right? I knew they had no way of maintaining that. Like, oh, I gave you 5 Flash videos. Well, what are you going to do after that? They're going to get boring after 7 days. So good luck,
Then they come back to you and be like, hey, I would like some more.
And then I was like, so I'm in the middle of this thing. I got a time and place and people and stuff.
I've been placing people and stuff. But yeah, I think Aaron, we kind of all said it because of the way the site looked, and I was actually very intrigued, at least at first when there was a lot of population within GWF. I love the challenge board. I love like, why am I waiting for someone to book me a match when I can just try to book a match or book a feud and do what I need to do? And the challenge board was great back then because you could go out and like be like, hey, want a match. So the event's tomorrow. Let's both throw up a confirmation role play and then let's actually role play. Eventually that ended up just going terribly because nobody would post anything. And then we just started booking matches. And then we went to Twitter because we're terrible people. So yeah, it's just the multitude of different facets that made GWF different than other things. It definitely kept me around. I know it definitely kept Dave around. And then Aaron, it sounds like same with you. Like that's it being so different and so up to date.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was nothing like GWF. We could all agree on that.
Yeah. See, there you go, Dennis. That's a little pat on the back for you.
All that time, hey, listen, you're in this too. Don't cut yourself out.
Yeah, but mine wasn't so much like I did very basic graphics, even though they took a while because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But very basic graphics. I tried to do videos like there was no tomorrow, and it just kept failing and failing. I don't know how many emails. I would love to go back through my actual email and be like, I remember emailing you again before I knew you were Dennis and Kevin. And I'd be like, I cannot figure out this thing. Like, what is going on? And normally, whenever I got a response, it was like, oh, you just have to do this. And I was like, God damn it. That's so simple, yet I had no idea what I was doing. This flash isn't working, or why can't this music stop playing? And they're like, well, you have to change this thing from start to stop. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But when you're doing it on the fly, just trying to keep everything updated, it's not easy. I definitely appreciated the admin pages because if I had to do everything through FTP and script and write everything for every single page, I would have quit way before I quit.
And most of those other feds did.
Yeah.
That was homegrown. So put that in perspective, why other feds died. That.
Yeah. And I love that we did it for selfish reasons. I don't want to do this anymore. Let's let somebody else do it and make it look like we're giving them all these nice things when really I cannot be arsed to do this. You gotta love the selfishness too. So I haven't asked anybody this question. Is before we get into WrestleMania week. Let's say GWF was still going today. Let's say it didn't close in 2013, 2014, wherever we closed it. So it's another 10 years. Oh my God, it's been 10 years. Okay, we're old. Would would you guys? I know Dennis, you were already out of it, so it's not so much for you. But Aaron was still there. Amber, I think, was there towards at the end too. Dave was there. Obviously, I was there. Would you guys still be in it? I'll start with. I'm going to end with Aaron because he's our guest, but I'm going to start with Dave. Would you still be in GWF, either helping or role playing?
I would still be in it. Role play. I mean, I still write role plays now, actually, but would I still be doing it in GWF
Nerd.
after all this time? I don't know. But I also didn't like help. I didn't like helping, so maybe I would prefer to write role plays. Yeah, I would say yes, and it's funny because I mentioned to you not that long ago that Paul Burchill's wrestling again somehow. So like he's still an active wrestler. So yeah, it would work out.
Yeah, my guy hasn't been active for many years. I'm not sure if he knew what
That's
happened or
true.
not. He kind of, but just saying. Amber, what about you? Like 10 years later, would you still be around? Would you still be role playing?
I would say definitely not to the extent that I was. Like I was going crazy just trying to write out like I mean, at times it was like almost like 10,000 words. And I'm like, what am I doing here? You know, like I could be writing a novel if I wanted to. But I do like the deadlines and the consistency that you have to do when you're doing e-fetting. So I do miss that. I'd probably be a different character because of what happened. But I think probably something similar, like Rhea Ripley is really cool now. So maybe something like that. So I don't know, probably, like I said, to a lesser extent. I don't think I can do over 1,500 words anymore. I think that's like my cap. Like, I don't even want to do 2,000, man. I'm tired. I'm old. I got a job, you know? It's rough.
And Aaron, what about you? We're talking 10 years later, and it was, I don't think Dave heard us. I'm going to mention it again. You said that you stopped role playing when GWF closed, which is funny because so did I. Like, when GWF closed, I joined another Fed because somebody asked me to, didn't role play, didn't care, didn't do anything. Ended up writing like a book about the whole experience. And as soon as I got done, I was just like, I am done with writing, with any of this shit. I'm just done. Like, it felt cathartic to get it all out. But for you, it sounds like you stopped too. Was that just because GWF was such a big part, or just you didn't want to keep going in this nerdy thing that we all loved back in the day?
It was mainly because GWF closed, and I couldn't. There was nothing else out there that intrigued me or brought me to like GWF. Like now, more than likely, probably not because of life and work and everything.
Yeah, I get that. I think we're all kind of in the like. It all sounds great, and I've talked to Dennis about like a reunion show, like a one-time only reunion show. But it sounds like a lot of work. So much work. So much
Yeah, and one
work.
thing I'll say is I said I write role plays, but like for the most part, it's one show, it's one role play a month. Like, and it's mostly people over 30. So
Old fat.
it's not like the old days where it's like every single week, thousands of words. That's just not
Multiple times a week,
yeah.
and then writing matches.
Twice
And
a week and then
segments.
once on Sunday during the month.
Yeah.
How's that sound? No?
No, it's at the time it sounded amazing. I was like, awesome. There gets to be a Raw, a Thunder, and a pay-per-view. This sounds great. And then I started doing it, and I was just like, well, this is awful. I'm not getting paid. I'm just doing the work. Everybody's bitching and whining. Damn it.
I know.
Well, I should have won 1,000 more times. I'm just kidding.
I heard that a bunch. I'm sure Dennis did too.
Tweets. We could bring back tweets.
Oh, fuck you. No.
Well,
I don't think
see
anyone
here,
wants to do that
see,
for
what,
sure.
what I was thinking is creative writing was just not my thing. I can't set the scene and make you picture what I'm picturing. I have always had that problem. Like I can put the words there, but your perception of what's happening is extremely different than my perception of what I tried to write. And that came through with matches all the time where I'm like, well, no, this, you're supposed to see this like this. Never mind. It doesn't matter. Part of me says to go the Matt Hardy approach and just start making YouTube videos of your promos, because then you could deliver it
You could.
in a manner that you would want to. Now, granted, it's scene set up and you're going to have to write it out and then set your scene and then videotape it, then edit it, and then post it. Oh my God, I'm just tired of thinking of that. But I think for me, in this digital age that we're in, that almost feels like the way to go is give yourself video promos.
If we were starting now, it would probably be like a TikTok thing. Like you got X amount of minutes, cut your promo, we're going to judge it off that. Like when we were first starting, when eFeds were first starting, there wasn't video basically anywhere. And if there was, it was like some flashes, like back in the early days. Everybody was on those message boards because that's what everybody could handle. That's what their computers could handle. So that's when the role playing started. It was like the logbook that you had originally for GWF. That's all most systems could handle. So that's what you have. But you're right that nowadays, with technology the way it is, with everything being those little burst moments, like a TikTok thing would probably be, or something similar, Facebook Reels, the Instagram nonsense, the other one. Like that would make the most sense, except then you'd have to get people get them into their comfort or out of their comfort zone and actually like cut a promo. It's a lot easier to type a promo and assume you're going to get your point across rather than like filming it, hoping that your facial features are given the right expressions. Although it'd be funny, I'm gonna go get a skirt and I'm gonna role play as Miss Brooks. That's what's gonna happen.
I'm gonna go get my Undertaker hat. I'll give it a shot.
I've got the Bray Wyatt costume. I could do that. I've got his title. I've got the mask. I've got the hair. I've got the suit. I could do that one. The rest of them, though, like I mean, I could chug a beer. Does that make me awesome?
Yeah, but at the same time, though, Bray's such a hard character to emulate.
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing him a disservice.
You could get like you'll start it great. I think that's what a lot of us would run into, right? You get like the first two sentences because you can picture how you want to start, and then as it starts to get into substance, it just strays away from that main heartline that you're trying to maintain. You hit the opening notes, and then you kind of turn into yourself. You're not that character anymore, right? I know.
I think at that point we should just start our own wrestling federation and just be our own characters, Like you're like halfway there. You just need the in-ring training now.
So it's funny you say that, not about starting one, but so we'll get to the WrestleMania thing because this ties into it. But one of my lifelong dreams was to go to WrestleMania. Like that was one of the lifelong dreams. It was to own a title because back when I was a kid, I was poor as shit. So it was to own a title. And then it was to go to WrestleMania. And the only other thing that's on that bucket list that I have not done is buy a ring. A real life wrestling ring. That is on my bucket list. And I am an adult I'm a child with adult money, which should not be a thing that's allowed to happen. Because now that's probably like the next thing that I'm going to save up for because I'm very stupid.
How much is that?
I don't remember. I know what it was back when I was a kid. It was like $5,000, but that was many years ago. I have no idea what it would cost today.
Plus shipping.
That just in shipping.
Yeah, $5,000 to get it here. Then I'm gonna have to have somebody set it up because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
No better way to learn.
You're not wrong.
I think if you're gonna have a ring, you might as well do some training.
I just plan on breaking my neck real quick. I'm just gonna dive off the top rope and just end it all, guys.
You know what? You could probably just go buy a bunch of cheap mattresses quick and just lay them out and done.
See, I've done that.
Yeah, but now you could buy more with adult money and you could buy better mattresses.
I'm seeing one that's 2,800. I think this is totally doable.
It sounds doable. That's way less than WrestleMania.
I'm saying.
Totally doable.
I'm sending you a link.
This is bad influence, guys. You guys should be saying, no, that's stupid. Don't do that. And you guys are like, no, fuck it. If you're going to do it, do it.
We want to see it now.
That's where the next podcast will take place. I'll just be sitting in the ring. Be like, why isn't anybody here?
We're all going to your place, I guess. That's
Oh, too funny. All right, so before we jump into the WrestleMania, anybody else have any other GWF thoughts, GWF memories, things that they haven't been able to share in the other podcasts, or for Aaron, your first time here? Anything else anybody's got to talk about or share? God, it feels like an AA meeting. Who else wants to share?
I would just like to share that I am amused at how long your write-up is on your profile for Canyon, and then most of the other roster has absolutely nothing. I mean, I have to scroll 6 times to get to the bottom of your write-up for Canyon.
That is so appropriate.
I was very into Canyon.
So that's a thing.
It was a thing, and I'm pretty sure I set it up so it had a script, so that it wouldn't be like this long down. You actually had to scroll, like, and it looked like it was part of the web page, like if somebody designed it that way. Pretty sure that's how I have it set up. Am I right?
It's in there's that, and there's a little scrolling bar for your past
my
accomplishments
Yes.
as
And-
the insane. Oh, you listed out who you beat. That is.
Oh
what
yeah, I
it
definitely
is.
did that.
Yep.
Hey, I was very into Canyon and role playing, and I was very proud of the shit I did.
It's quite the list.
It is quite the list. Well, I was in the damn Fed for 10 years, 8 years, 9 years. I was in a match every. At first, I was in a match every single show.
I'm actually surprised I got this running enough that it actually is browsable, and I'm kind of glad I did. This is fun.
I mean, you were surprised that it was still around with the old script.
This is fair. This is a fair point.
Yeah. Amber, Dave, Aaron, anything else to share? Or like I said, like an AA meeting? Anything you guys feel like you need to get off your chests?
By the way, you're right on the Kevin McAlmond, which sounds like a fake name now. But anyways, I'm done.
It might have been Kevin McDermott. Maybe he just came back just for that.
Anything's possible at this point.
All right, well, you guys are being silent, so we're just going to jump into WrestleMania week. And the first thing I want to ask, did everybody watch everything? Did everybody watch SmackDown, NXT, WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania Night 2, Raw? Amber, you didn't watch anything?
No,
Yes.
I watched because I knew I was doing this. I watched the recap for WrestleMania.
Oh, you watched the recap. God, a fair weather fan over here. Jeez.
I will say that I have been a very lapsed fan, and I watched quite a bit leading up to this, and this was one of the first WrestleManias that I actually watched live. And I will credit my 7-year-old daughter because she sees memes and she knows The Rock Johnson is what she calls him, and that was hilarious to me. So she wanted to see The Rock Johnson wrestle a match. So we started watching old WrestleManias leading up to this and old interviews and such. And then the night of, like, well, we can turn it on. You want to watch with me? We'll put it on the big TV then. So we watched on the big TV. And then, of course, as she's watching, she calls Cody Rhodes Blondie. And now I can't stop calling him Blondie because that's hilarious to me. But yes, I did watch SmackDown. I might have skipped through some of SmackDown, but I watched most of SmackDown. And I watched Night 1 and Night 2 live, which is insane to me because that hasn't happened in at least 15 years. And then we ended up sitting down and watching Raw the night after because she wanted to see more wrestling. I'm like, maybe it's our thing now. I don't know.
Hey,
But,
there are worse things to.
yeah,
go with.
listen. Apparently, her little friends at school all watched, so it was a thing.
Don't add to the line for the women's room. I'm kidding. That's adorable.
Apparently, there's not much of a line at wrestling events. So
That's
you
true.
know, just saying.
There's really not. There's really not. So that's awesome. Especially because first memory I have, which isn't like a full memory of wrestling, is watching with my dad. Screw that guy now, but back when I was like 5 years old, I was like, that's my first memory. That's how I got into wrestling, was because of that memory. So yeah, especially we need new fans coming in. We can't just all be us old people. Like look at all of our, besides for Dave, who's got like the baby face. We're all just looking at. Like, we got the gray beards. We got this. We're just chilling, feeling old. Damn it, Dave, you and the baby face.
I have gray. I have some gray. So KJ. So
I have a lot of gray.
I was gonna say Aaron and I are rocking just the gray, just pouring off our face over here.
Yeah.
So Aaron, you watched everything?
I did, yes.
Dave, were you able to?
Yeah, I watched I watched both nights. Yeah.
And then Amber got the recap. All right, so I'm gonna start with you guys before I get into my shit. How did you guys feel about it? How'd you feel? Let's talk about how we felt leading up to it. So let's start with Amber. How did you? Well, no, can't start with Amber. I will start with Amber because I have a question. With you not really watching it, how much did you know about it before you saw the recap? Did you know all the stories going into it, or were you like, oh, I know the big ones. I know The Rock's gonna be there.
Yeah, I kind of knew the big ones just from following wrestlers on social media and stuff. Like I've been seeing clips and pieces, but nothing substantial really. Like I saw The Rock slap Cody in the face and I was like, how dare you? No, I'm just kidding. Sort of. I love Cody.
You mean The Rock slap Blondie? I'm pretty sure we have to call him Blondie now.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I miss grotesque Cody Rhodes. I was just thinking about it today.
That was it was a great character that they could have done so much more with, because it was like Phantom of the Opera and protecting his nose, because obviously it did get broken. So like you can do a lot with that, and especially because I think that came after dashing, like because he was dashing first, then he broke the nose, and then he became the grotesque one. Like you could have done a lot with that, and they were just like, yeah, we're good, we don't really need it. All right, Dave, what about you? What did you feel leading up to WrestleMania?
What did I feel? I was looking, well, probably like most people, I was looking most forward to. Actually, probably the Rock's match. Is that what most people are looking forward to the most? I don't know. It feels like it.
So for me, being live, yes, because it's The Rock, and I've been watching The Rock since I was a toddler, basically. But for me, I think I was looking forward to Drew and Seth more than the Rock match. I love the story. I love Drew's character.
Yeah,
I
Drew's
Drew's
been
character is
great.
fantastic. And we'll talk about the cash in, but Jesus Christ, the cash in live was insane. But go ahead. So you were more excited. Were you excited about the Rock match on night one, or the Rock just being in at all?
Definitely both, but I was just looking forward to knowing he's in great shape, but it doesn't always translate to the ring. But they also, I guess we'll talk more about it, but they did the match so that they protected him too. It wasn't like some ridiculously fast-paced match.
Right. It was 44 minutes though.
Right. Yeah.
It's a very
I don't
long
know.
time.
It went by fast enough, I thought. Other than that, probably the women's title matches I was looking forward to the most after The Rock and after Cody and Roman.
And Aaron, what about you? Leading up to WrestleMania, how did you feel about everything?
I thought it was a great card, honestly. This truly, to me, felt like the greatest WrestleMania ever, honestly. From last year, finishing the story, obviously, I was looking so forward to that. But The Rock, I mean, and the final boss character was so awesome.
That's a good character. That's a real good character. Yeah, they definitely had a stacked card. Now, some of the matches definitely kind of felt a little filler, but for the most part, from top to bottom, you had matches that had been like this long feud that you want to see like a payoff. So Dennis, you had mentioned about like watching with the kiddo because of the meme. Were you how far did you start watching before everything started this past weekend?
I probably tuned in every couple of weeks. So I wasn't watching religiously, but if I saw something on Twitter that looked interesting, I would go and catch more. Like, oh, let me go see what else happened. Because let's face it, yeah, The Rock got me back in. Without a doubt, once Punk went down, with his injury, it was, is what it is. I'm like, oh, okay. but seeing The Rock involved again, as we kind of discussed last time that we assumed was going to happen, I was like, okay, well, now I want to see what he's going to do. And then in watching, I think I got sucked into the Seth Drew CM Punk triangle going on. I was like,
So good.
actually, that's pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty fun. So the world title matches are what screamed out to me. Now I think probably most of us could have guessed what was going to happen night one, in main event wise, storytelling wise, and I was more interested to see what happened. I mean, night two was. I'm like, okay, I don't even care what happens before here. I'm waiting for this main event. I gotta see what happens. And at that point, I was just kind of invested, and the rest was fun. But I think is main event time for me. Like that was what I was looking forward to.
So I'm obviously a little bit different because I was there. So I was like everything I ate up. Like it was 19 hours of wrestling roughly between all the shows and the Hall of Fame, and everything was roughly about like 19 hours. And I could have gone for another 19. That's how jacked I was to be there and how good everything was. Again, there were some filler matches through everything, through Raw, through SmackDown, through NXT, through Mania Night 1 and Night 2. But it was so minuscule that it really didn't matter when you look at the grand scheme of everything. Everything just popped on every level. And very similar, I was very deflated when Punk got hurt because I knew I was going to Mania and I knew it should be Punk versus Seth Night 1. And I was over the moon about seeing that. And then seeing Roman versus Cody, or Roman versus The Rock Night 2, which was the original plan. Just for anybody that doesn't know, the original plan was for Cody to win the Rumble, CM Punk to win the Elimination Chamber, Cody and Seth Night 1, and then, excuse me, not Cody, Seth and CM Punk Night 1, and then Cody was supposed to get injured, and The Rock was supposed to basically come in and fill in and take his spot against Roman at WrestleMania. So it would have prolonged the finishing the story for another 6-12 months. So I don't know how it would have felt, but it would have been great to see like that. That was in my head of like, oh, this is going to be, how did I buy these tickets without even knowing these were going to be the main events? Let's go. But The Rock being, as Aaron mentioned, the final boss has been spectacular. There's nothing like heel Rock. And it's so funny to me because, so we went to WWE World on Thursday and The Rock was 2 hours late. 2 hours late to showing up, and came out and was just mocking the crowd, telling them that he was in the back watching Jalen Hurts blow the Super Bowl, like just getting the Philly crowd riled up. But then like he had a sweet little moment with this little kid and he turned everybody back around, and I was just like, only The Rock, man. Only The Rock is gonna basically like insult you and then have you eaten out of the palm of his hands.
Yeah, he kind of, well, plus on TV, then he had that moment or kind of story where he's like, I have daughters too, or whatever.
Yep.
But a man's going to do what a man's going to do, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So he tries to put that nuance into the character. He's not just this total evil guy,
And then he loves to get the crowd riled up. I'm for anybody that watched Raw, the first 45 minutes of Raw was the opening promo. And for 20 minutes of that, people were booing The Rock. Like anytime he put that microphone up to his mouth, they just booed the shit out of him. And then we were all chanting, "Shut the fuck up." And then The Rock, which they bleeped out obviously on Raw, but then The Rock goes, "Well, you guys have broken another record for the most pieces of trailer park trash in an arena. Yeah, go ahead. Tell The Rock to shut the fuck up again." And I couldn't have laughed harder if I tried. I was losing it. He's so good at being able to like control the audience of what they're thinking, feeling. And just when you're like, oh, he might say a catchphrase and we all get excited. Nope, he just turned to the other corner. It's sad to know that he's not going to be there like every week, like he basically has been for the last 2 months, which has been awesome. Like he just keeps showing up to shows. I don't know necessarily if that'll hurt the product fully, but it's definitely going to hurt some because, as Dennis said, like he got sucked back in by The Rock. My buddy who came with me, who has not watched wrestling except for randomly with me once every other year, has not watched wrestling, but we always had a dream of like going ourselves. And 2 days in, he's screaming, he's cheering, he's loving it. Like there's nothing like being there. And then he got to see The Rock, who's his favorite character. So you get all of that, and yeah.
And I'll quote my daughter. So we're watching Raw. She goes, "Why are they booing The Rock?" Because she's sitting here wanting to cheer for The Rock. I'm like, well, when you're a bad guy, they want you to boo. And I'll tell you how smart kids are nowadays. This is a second grader, right? Second grade. She's like, "Oh, so if you're a bad guy and they boo, that means they like you. But if you're a good guy and they cheer, that means they like you." I'm like, that pretty much sums up professional wrestling. Like if you're a bad guy, you booing them is a good thing for them. And then if you're a good guy, you cheering them is a good thing. Like I was probably 25 before I learned that. So here we are.
Silence is the worst thing for a professional wrestler. If you're getting any type of reaction, it's one of the reasons that they love Cena, because obviously Cena had he was like 50-50. People loved him, people hated him. Now I think everybody just respects what he did for the business, but at that time, there was nobody more loved and hated than Cena, and that's what you want. You need a reaction. If you go out there and there's crickets, which there was a couple times throughout this past weekend with people, like that's not what you want. And like I think it was NXT, it was a women's tag match, and it was mostly crickets. For the majority of the battle royal that was on Friday was a lot of crickets until like Omos maybe screwed up by falling out of the ring. Then you got the big meat guys going after each other, so the crowd went nuts for that. But like the beginning part of it, just a lot of dead air, which is not what you want. You want the crowd to be loving you or hating you. And The Rock definitely has that ability, and he can do both like at the same time. Just crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, if it gets to a point where like people lose interest and the ratings go down, or YouTube views go down a lot because The Rock's not there, well, then it's not really getting better. It's just because of The Rock.
Yeah,
so they have to be able to get views without The Rock being around at all.
I saw somebody tweet, I think it was one of the wrestlers, about saying that Cody is a draw, and he is a draw, don't get me wrong, but they're like, Raw did like 2.3 million ratings, and John Cena wasn't advertised, The Rock wasn't advertised, and I was like, okay, let's slow our roll a little bit. This is the Raw after WrestleMania. Raw after WrestleMania usually pops big in ratings because you're expecting some stuff, and this year actually provided those things. There were some surprise people that showed up from the NXT champion and the NXT women's champion. Cena showing up, The Rock showing up. We have the Fatal 4-Way main event #1 contenders match, which, by the way, I don't think I've seen a #1 contenders match for the world title in forever. So that was a nice little change of pace. But so, yeah, I think the coming weeks will be kind of telling of how they're able to do, because they also, I think Raw was the 17th consecutive sellout for a weekly show or for any of their shows, including obviously WrestleMania, Raw, SmackDown. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it tomorrow or not. It looks like they should be able to. But if they do, I think that's like 18th consecutive. It's weird that they have to count it, though, because back in the Attitude Era, it didn't matter. Every single arena was just sold out. There was no reason to count. It was just like, yeah, we're sold out again. I remember JR's opening every single time was like, we're here, sold out, yada, yada, yada. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from there. So Dave, you've been to WrestleMania, right? Which one did you go to?
Yeah, I've been to Orlando, and I've been to 3 of them.
Well, you.
So I don't think I'm ever going again, because I kind of go out of the way. But
that's fair.
The last one I went to was New Jersey, the main event, where Becky pinned Ronda. That was the last one I went to.
Oh, yep, that was 30.
I think that was the last WrestleMania that was one night, because it was like 8 hours, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah. And now, Dennis, you've been. Which one did you go? Yeah, because you're a bastard. I remember. I hate you. 18, Rock and Hogan. I just rewatched
that. Counts more than if I went to 10 WrestleManias. So.
Yeah. Although I would kind of hate that, because it should have been the main event. Like,
I'll tell you, I could not remember. I remember so. And my daughter wanted to see more Rock matches. We watched some of the ending of WrestleMania 18, and I could not remember details from the end of 18. I'm like, I remember after that Hogan match sitting down and being like, I'm spent. I have nothing left. And looking at the kids in front of us and be like, well, good job for cheering for, The Rock, as you got 6, overgrown nerds up here chanting for Hogan. Good job. And I was like, I'm just gonna sit here. I'm good. I'm just gonna. Yep, I'm done.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of that, but they were able to get it back because it was the first match. It was Seth and Drew, night 2. It was a great match. And then everything with Punk, and then the cash in. My God, the crowd went nuts. Even though it was Damien and he's a heel and yada yada, or a tweener, whatever you want to call him. The crowd went berserk to see a cash in. The crowd went berserk that Drew McIntyre kind of got what he deserved after everything with Seth and Punk, and just went berserk. And then the next match was I don't remember if it was
Tag title match.
It was what?
I think it was a tag title match.
No, tag title was on the first night.
What?
Yeah, the ladder
Really?
match was on night 1.
I just know it was the match with Karrion Kross, because that was my least favorite match.
Yeah, that's what I want to say it was. It was like the 6-man street fight match for night 2.
That wasn't
And
good.
it wasn't good. It had a couple cool moments, but more or less wasn't anything to write home about. And it almost felt like by design, you're like, hey, this story is whatever, and we're gonna have some weapons. Maybe that'll not like deflate the crowd so much. But that first match was so damn good and kept everybody on the edge of their seats of who was gonna win. And then Drew finally has his moment in front of a live crowd, and then it gets taken away from him after he's taunting CM Punk. Like, the crowd was at a 15 out of 10. And then when that next match happened, like, we were at like a 6, and that was slowly going down because everybody was just like, yeah, they got weapons. Okay. Not a great story, but there's weapons. Yay. But yeah, definitely not the level of Rock Hogan, because my God.
And
but
you could see they were trying. You could almost feel that, right? Like that is your come down match, and they did little things like, hey, let's bring Bubba Ray out as a surprise guest ref that I didn't know about if it was announced ever.
I don't think it was.
To try and hit that, like, hey, we're in Philly, ECW, like. And it wasn't bad. And then you had the spots in there where they were doing the Dudley shtick, like,
they were good.
Okay, you gotta
fan
make
service.
it. You gotta make it fun to
Yeah.
try and stoke something, because it's a lot.
It was very deflating, but it's not bad to do, because if you get people hooked immediately, then even if you were able to stoke that fire a little bit with that second and third match before you start ramping up again. Because I remember JR talking about it years ago, about saying like their whole process before was they wanted the first match to be a banger, and then every match after that to keep being bangers and just keep going up. Now it seems like they want that first match to be a banger, and then there is a bit of a lull, and then they start ramping back up. They want that first match to really hit. So that's why we had Seth night 1, and we had Becky night 1 and Seth night 2. To both be put in that spot to kind of like get the crowd knowing, like, hey, we're at WrestleMania. This shit's about to happen. But definitely, some deflate after that one. But I can't imagine The Rock Hogan. I probably would have done the same thing and just sat down and been like, I'm good. I can leave now. I don't even care about this main event. Who cares? Was it Triple H Jericho?
Yeah, and I mean, Bill Smith from GWF, a big Jericho guy, and even he couldn't bring himself up to do anything. He's just like, we're too tired.
It's happened to him twice, meaning Triple H, because it was Triple H, Jericho that match, and then WrestleMania 25, it was Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, and the main event was Triple H Orton, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So God, I would like, after the first one, you gotta sometimes know, like, hey, we probably shouldn't follow this. And nobody cared about the Orton Triple H match. Everybody was just like, oh my God, the Shawn Michaels Undertaker match. Like, that's the be all end all. Why are we even trying? So let's talk about favorite matches. So from WrestleMania night 1 and 2, like what do we got? Amber, let's start with you. From the highlights that you saw, which highlight made you go?
Honestly, it was definitely the Becky and Rhea match. That was awesome. Like they're just such talented women, and I like both their characters a whole lot. So it was kind of cool to see. Um, yeah, that's what I got for you.
Were you surprised that they kept the title on Rhea?
No, I think it makes sense. Like, I like to see a strong character get built up because I feel like Becky's had her time to shine for a while. So, like, distribute it out. Plus, she can always fight back and take it away from her eventually. But keeping that title with her for a year is pretty awesome. It builds, it puts more on the title. Like, it makes it more important. So the next time they fight, they might choose to swap it out.
I definitely like the idea that they kept the title with Rhea. That was a surprise for me, but I'm glad that they did, especially with Damian cashing in. So now they have their quote 2-on-2 leader or quote unquote 2 leaders of Judgment Day, now both with world titles. And is it me? Maybe I'm wrong. Did they switch out the women's world title? Is it a new belt now? It looks just like the world heavyweight title. Or was I just not paying attention?
I'm guessing they did. I don't know.
Yeah, they've both world titles on Raw are the same, and both world titles on SmackDown are exactly the same.
Is that recent or did that change?
That happened last year.
Really? That long ago?
Yeah, it happened last year.
Apparently, I do not pay enough attention. I was assuming it was that stupid WWE one that I hate the look of. The World Heavyweight title came this close to buying it and didn't do it because it's a lot of money just for another title. But it's that close, guys. That close. But okay, that makes more sense because I thought they gave her like a new title at WrestleMania and didn't say anything about it, and I was just like, that's weird. But okay, so probably when they introduced Seth's new title of the World Heavyweight Championship, they changed the women's one. Okay, that makes more sense.
Roman had the 2 belts. Whenever he got his belt, that's whenever EO got hers, and then when Seth won the world title, they switched Rhea's to match basically.
Gotcha. Okay. So what about you, Dave? What are we thinking? Match of the WrestleMania.
So both nights. I was just taking a look again at the cards for each night so I could remember. Definitely for night 1. Obviously the main event. Definitely Rhea and Becky because I always like a Becky match, but I just think Rhea is so over. I mean, she might be the most popular. She's honestly not far from Cody in terms of popularity,
which is weird.
So,
I don't know.
It wasn't surprising to me that she won.
Agreed. Very surprising that she won, but it's
no,
also
it wasn't surprising. I'm saying.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay, gotcha.
No.
Well, it was surprising just because she's held it a year, and that is a long time for a title reign. But I'm looking at, and especially because Gunther lost his title after almost 2 years. Roman lost his after 3.5 years. So I was kind of thinking, okay, that's what they're doing at this WrestleMania. Like everybody's having their long reigns, and now it's kind of like a beginning of a new regime, which is the Triple H, Paul Levesque era. Like, are we swapping out all the champions?
And yeah, I don't know. And like Amber said, like Becky's kind of been there and done that. And also, I do prefer. Not many people prefer the heel Becky, but I think that's her best character. And I just didn't think that her current character was the one to do it. Anyway, but
do you find it interesting that so you have Judgment Day, which is supposed to be a heel group? Now they do get some cheers, but the Rhea gets all cheers constantly, and then it's so funny when she has a microphone and there's cheering, and then she gives it to Dominic. It's some of the loudest boos I've ever heard in my entire life. The crowd hates Dominic.
Yeah, it is super unique. Definitely Finn Balor is a heel. I mean, he gets booed all the time.
Yep.
And the other Irish guy who I'm not
JD.
remembering his name. What's that?
JD.
Yeah. Those guys are heels. Dominic obviously is like a super heel. And yeah, I don't know. Is it somewhat comparable to like Bret Hart, in '97 with these But then his was more of a location thing for his reaction.
Yeah, his was if he was in Canada, he was the faciest face of all the faces.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure there's any comparison for it really.
The only thing that I can think of is the Nation of Domination when the crowd started to like The Rock,
Sure.
just because of who that character was. This feels a little bit different than that because they've liked Rhea all along, because of her character, because of her uniqueness, and because of her ability in the ring.
I've been watching maybe like the past like 6 or so months fairly regularly. Before that, I thought maybe Rhea was getting more boos. I don't know.
I think it kind of depends on what she's doing. Yeah, she's a great heel. Like she can make the crowd turn on her, but then I feel like the crowd, because of who she is and her ring ability and the way she can cut a promo, people are just like, yeah, you're awesome.
And the thing is too, like Becky's one of the top faces in the company, maybe the top female face, and just one of the top overall. And so she was getting booed. Becky was getting booed at many points in the feud and during the match. So it just shows where Rhea is right now, I think.
Yeah, which is why it was probably the smart decision to keep it on her. And then obviously, as we saw on Raw, looks like she's got a feud with Liv Morgan, which, by the way, that chair shot was fantastic. Even in the arena, it looked very real. And I'm sure it was. She threw a chair at her, but it looked more visceral than chair shots I've seen.
Sure.
So
I think I don't think Liv's not the right person to take the title, but
no, but it should be good.
Very good. She's very good at like street fight match, no DQ type stuff and spot fest. So
well, I think it's also she's very tiny and Rhea's bigger. So I think they can have like that type of little man, big man match, especially with Rhea playing more of a heel, and Liv playing more of a face. Like those are usually like the good ones that you have. When you have somebody like the Big Show who is playing heel and he's up against a small guy like Rey Mysterio, crowd ate that up. So I think you'll get a little bit of that. And as long as Liv can keep being crazy, then like she'll have a shot and the crowd will be like eating it up.
But yeah, it's interesting to think about who is really has any chance of taking the title because I mean Io's great. She just lost the title. Asuka's
we have the draft coming up.
But yeah, I don't know.
Jade Cargill.
Jade Cargill. We have the draft coming up like in like a month or something. So it's very possible that they could put Bianca over there. Bianca could beat Rhea. They could put Charlotte Flair, supposed to be returning sometime soon. She's already beaten Rhea, even though I didn't agree with that.
Yeah, she's 80,000 title reigns.
Yeah. And then obviously Jade Cargill, although Jade needs a lot of work, in my opinion, to get to that level. But it'll probably be Jade if I had to guess. Like they should keep her away from her as Jade.
I would think maybe they'll throw like Io and Asuka and Kairi on Raw.
You think the whole Damage Control over there and leave Bayley over
that gives away a lot of like really good opponents.
Yeah.
I have a dumb question.
Sure.
When Bianca uses her ponytail, do they add a sound effect when that happens? Like when she hits?
They sure fucking don't.
She just hits that friggin' hard.
That's a great question.
Yeah, so very similar to like a kendo stick. You just have to eat it, or a chop, like a chop to the chest. Like, fuck if I'd ever want to get in a match with Gunther. Because my God, like seeing those guys' chests instantly turn red was crazy. And it's the same with the hair. It is just like, hey, this is gonna hurt. It's gonna sting like a motherfucker. We're about to do it.
Yeah, Gunther kind of reminds me of William Regal in the ring.
Yes, very stiff, and it looks very real, like the strong style type thing. I would love a match with Gunther and Shinsuke, but like the old Shinsuke, the King of Strong style Shinsuke, and just watch them work stiff. It's very similar. What was it? Match of the year last year was Drew, Sheamus, and Gunther, and they were beating the hell out of each other.
No, but Shinsuke's had some great promos the last few months.
Yes, but his in-ring ability is not matching the promos right now, or they're making him lose constantly, and it's kind of like, great, you've given him another character, which is better than what you've given him before, but if he's just jobbing out to everybody, why do I care?
Yeah.
I loved it when he first came up with the strong style. Like he was one of my favorites right off the bat because he had such a unique look to him. His style was different. His wrestling style was very technical. I really enjoyed that.
Did you ever watch him in New Japan?
No.
My God, some of those matches were insane. And he, very similar to what Gunther did with the Intercontinental title, he did that with the New Japan secondary title. He held it for like 2 years and had match of the night basically every time he went out there, and basically show that the world title didn't mean shit because he wasn't the one holding it. And his matches were brutal. And that's one of the reasons why I was super excited for him to come to WWE. And his first match against Sami Zayn was a banger in NXT. Like, just phenomenal, those two. And then to find out they didn't talk to each other beforehand, they just went out in the ring and called it.
Oh,
Yeah, just listen to the crowd and we're just like, okay, this is what we're doing. But yeah, he's a fantastic character and he's a fantastic in-ring worker if they allow him to be. And now with Triple H more in control, hopefully we get that. Like, obviously we already saw it, as Dave mentioned, with his promos and some of the vignettes that he's done. Hopefully that can translate into actually doing something in the ring. But I don't know. It's going to be hard unless he feuds with a top face. And right now, a top face doesn't hold the world title like a heel does. So it's going to be hard for Shinsuke to kind of make himself known because he already got destroyed by Cody. So I'm not sure who they put him up against to get him to that level.
Yeah, and it might just be one of those things where he's just like willing to job out. He's he might be volunteering for all we know.
I don't know if he's volunteering, but yeah, he's probably not that upset about it. I mean, they're making a lot of money, and he already did. But that character should have won the world title from AJ Styles, or if he wasn't going to win the title from AJ Styles at WrestleMania, and then he hit that low blow and turned into the heel Shinsuke, then that should have got him his world title the next pay-per-view, and it just nothing worked out the way it should have worked out for Shinsuke. Very similar to Asuka. Asuka lost, had that streak going, and then she lost to Charlotte in WrestleMania, which I very much disagreed with.
Yeah, and I still like what she's doing now, but it's just she's basically a jobber. She's like a crony.
Yeah, she's definitely crony, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can't always be the center of attention type person. It's okay for your career to kind of ebb and flow like that. But I agree, that old character of hers was just I'm going to destroy you. She didn't really have that much personality besides for her facial expressions and what she did in the ring. She didn't really have a lot of promo skill.
Yeah, I think they're doing a really good job with the Japanese talent that
They
doesn't
are.
speak English as I mean, some of them are getting better, but the Shinsuke and then Io had some great promos translated.
Yep.
Triple H is doing a good job at that. Since
He is, man.
Yeah.
Things are good. What were you saying, Aaron? I don't know if we can hear you. I don't know if your volume's down or what. I can't hear you, but I can see your mouth moving.
Can you hear me now?
Very low. Is it low for everybody else?
Yeah, I can't.
It's almost like you're covering your mic.
No. Try leaving and coming back, Aaron. We'll come back to you. Try leaving and coming back. So what about you, Dennis? You obviously watched with the kiddo. I know her favorite match, but
Yeah.
what about yours? What was your favorite match over the weekend?
I mean, I have to give night 2 main event. That was, I mean, Roman and Cody aside, I'm gonna say the absolute chaos in the middle of it, where Solo comes out, then Cena comes out, and The Rock comes out, and then The Undertaker shows up. Okay, I'm sorry, that was fun. I don't even care if it all made sense. I mean, obviously you can connect storylines and do what you want with it. It was fun, and that's all I care about.
It was fun.
It was a freaking blast. So it was almost like that could have been a terrible show start to finish, which it wasn't. But that was fun. The rest of the match around it was great. That to me was what I was waiting for. I guess personally, I'll say what surprised me was when we first turned it on, night 1, and I'm like, oh, they're opening with the women's title match. I'm like, wow, that was a great opener. I mean, I was just taken aback to say, wow, I guess openers I know the Eric Bischoff philosophy of like, start them hot and, get some cruiserweights out there and then, lots of action and things like that. This was just a hard fought women's match and it was damn good. And I thought that, I think the rest of night one was kind of, the letdown is not what I want to say at all. But you kind of had some of the moments in there where it was like, okay, some of these matches are the lesser of the matches, and they had their moments, but it was just like, okay, they're fun, but I'm not really. Now I'm waiting for the rest. Now I'm waiting for the main event night one, like because you knew Roman Rock and Cody Seth were just going to be fun, and to be fair, that match went as I expected, although I thought the pace of it was a little slow. With we're gonna go spill into the crowd for a while. 5 some odd minutes with Seth and Rock, and I have no idea what Cody and Roman are doing, but we're gonna follow Seth and the Rock into the crowd forever. Okay, it felt like you had 4 big stars there. Even if Rock was still a part-time guy, if he couldn't go, Seth and Cody could go all day long.
Yeah.
Right. So just pair with one of them, pair Roman or Rock with one of them, and they could have gone all night. But I think that match itself, I don't think there was anything wrong with it. It was what I expected. But like action wise, like if you're trying to be technical about it, it wasn't great. But story wise, it was perfectly fine. So I had to say that probably the Rhea Becky match was my surprise. Like, oh wow, I really enjoyed that. And then main event night 2, just for me, again, Rock got me back into it, but then you bring the old guys back into it. Old guys, like Cena's an old guy now. You bring back, I guess the only thing that was missing is like, man, who's not there? Steve Austin was about the only name that I could have said, like, I almost would have expected him to show up, but
no piss that Stone Cold didn't show up.
I did read something. So somebody tried. I don't know if this is on Reddit or if this was on a forum or something. I don't know where the heck I read it, but somebody was trying to make the argument of like, okay, Solo came out and then Cena came out because they had the connect. Solo and Cena had the connection, so he took him out, and then obviously, Rock Cena from the 2 WrestleManias, and then the Undertaker was. Somebody was saying like, oh, it could have easily been Austin in that spot, but somebody's saying, well, the Undertaker makes sense too because he's the locker room leader. He's seeing all this kind of crap happen, and he's coming here to put the end to it. Like and then the Rock and Undertaker have had some past, some history. So, and the Roman and Undertaker history could technically tie into that. So, and I forgot the Shield music playing of all things that threw the hell out. Like,
yeah, and then people thought it'd be Moxley somehow.
And I'm sitting there, but my wife is sitting next to me, and she has she thinks Seth is cute. And she first saw him on, if anybody watches Good Mythical Morning on YouTube, Rhett and Link. They have a Mythical Kitchen channel, and that channel has last meals, and they sit and they have what they would have if their last meal, if it was their last day. And both Seth and Becky have appeared on there, so we saw both of them, and she thought Seth was cute. Then I'm like, okay, so we were watching wrestling, and that's tied back into that. And I'm like, oh, she made fun of. Well, what is Roman wearing? What is he wearing? Like just black khakis? Is that what he wrestles in? I'm like, it goes back to like his tactical gear that he used to wear. It really just kind of flows. It really makes sense if you just, you know what? I really don't feel like getting into 12 years of wrestler outfits. So let's just go with it. And then Seth shows up in the Shield gear, and I'm like, look, that's what they all used to wear. Like there was 3 of them, and they all used to wear that similar. So he's like, oh, okay, now. And it was fun. It was a fun moment of like just chaos. And I actually can't believe I forgot Seth came out in that, but I do know why I forgot, because the camera at home barely showed him. So whatever happened in the arena, all we saw was basically Roman fly by the camera
That's all
as
we
the
saw.
Shield theme is playing, and I'm like, oh, there's Seth. That's
We were all just looking around because obviously you expected him to come through the crowd. Everybody's like looking, and then we look back in the ring and he's getting punched in the face. And I was just like, well, that didn't last long.
So that was a thing.
Yeah, that was the thing. I was like, well, was that intentional? Was that not intentional? I don't know.
People are saying like it was all set up to be Roman needed to whack him with a steel chair to get revenge on him.
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and you saw that moment, right? They
had to
set
get
it up.
back.
They had the camera set up right where
They
they're like,
did.
oh, this is kind of looking like 10 years ago when it was reversed. That was great. I think I have no problem with that. I thought that was fun. Again, whatever you want to say aside of, oh, I didn't see Seth come in. The whole thing was chaos. The whole thing was fun. And in the end, it cleared all the riffraff out, right? And the near left, it almost there's been moments in the Attitude Era like that, right? Where you kind of have that. I think back to Biker Taker when he first showed up, right? The next night on Raw, not the Judgment Day pay-per-view, but the next night on Raw, there was like a whole big thing of like DX attacking The Rock. And like he came out and he basically cleared the ring and he left Triple H and Rock to finish off what they were doing, right? It kind of felt like that, like all these guys came in and there's chaos, and then after it was just the two, like you cleared out the riffraff, you had your fun. Oh, now we're gonna finish this the right way, right? So I felt that was great. I honestly felt that payoff was totally worth it. I am not a Cody fan, but I don't hate him either. Like I'm indifferent. I think he's perfectly fine. I have nothing wrong with him. I don't know. Like to me, it's just yeah, is what it is.
I'm in the same place, but I wasn't rooting for Roman for sure.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I wasn't like, well, I want Roman to
win.
win. I mean, I guess part of me was like, well, now that he's been the champ this long, how long could he go? I honestly didn't want to see Cody lose again, because if you lose 2 matches in a row like that in 2 years, you don't come back from it. But that aside, that was fine. Yeah, I thought it was a blast. I think there's a lot of this. I guess the only thing I took away from the weekend is like they're really shoving down like, this is the Triple H era. I'm like, I know,
Yeah.
I'm aware. Cool, I get it. But they were really shoving that down your throat, like again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah,
and then one more time just
now.
for fun.
Hopefully they stop that now.
Yeah, I'm like, and the only thing that kept going back to was like when AEW was hot, right? They were hot, and they could do no wrong, right? And then they did wrong. Well, what happens here, right? Is this, hey, the pendulum is swung back this way now, that AEW is kind of like, meh, but hey, this is good. Great. Well, what happens when it's not? Do you all start shitting on him? Like, okay, like this is great to say, and I have no problem. I thought honestly, this is of WrestleManias I've watched, this is easy top 5 with maybe top 3. And honestly, those top 3 could probably shift places any day of the week. I thought it was fun. I thought it was great overall. I didn't like the shoving Triple H down our throats, even though I think he deserves the credit. Don't get me wrong. But after getting it at the Hall of Fame stuff and then it all weekend long, I just feel it sets you up for that fall down of like, one day you're not going to be happy with what he's doing.
Yep.
And then what? What are you going to say? Man, he should go. He's got to go. Like,
he's so out of touch.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I'm happy to see the change. I think it reads like he's doing good things. The product, granted, it's WrestleMania time. The product is always hot around WrestleMania time. I'd like to see it more in the down times. What happens in 2 months from now when it's like everybody forgot about wrestling. Mainstream. Obviously, wrestling fans are going to watch without a doubt. But what happens when The Rock isn't there and you're not getting the coverage from Jimmy Fallon and you're not on every news program, every morning show? Okay. I'm curious. I think the product will be fine, but are you going to be saying the same thing of like, man, look how great the business is doing. Look at all these views and ratings and stuff. Yeah, just kind of slowly roll, just a tad, just a
Yeah,
tad.
they should definitely tamper some expectations. I get it because it is the first WrestleMania without Vince, and I'm sure it does feel extremely different for a lot of the wrestlers and the backstage crew. You can definitely tell the announcers in and of themselves feel completely different, or are able to say things again that they weren't able to say, or have somebody in their ear. They're just trusted to do it.
Yeah, Michael Cole has been he's been really good.
Yeah.
Which is I'll tell you, if you would have said that same sentence like 10 years ago, I would have punched you in the face.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because
I definitely would have never said it.
What's that, Amber? Yeah, I thought you were saying.
I really liked the chemistry that was happening with the commentators. Like that was one thing I definitely noticed that felt different for me. And even on the little video package I watched, I did get that Triple H stuff too. I was like, oh, noted. You know, I mean,
And that's what's hard, because I understand trying to give him his props, and everybody is at that level now with a microphone. So obviously you got it from Paul Heyman, which, by the way, probably the best Hall of Fame speech I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah, that was
it was so good, and live. My God.
Oh, you were at that too?
Yeah, I went to everything, which was a very long night because they didn't even start the Hall of Fame till 10:30, and then it didn't end until like 1.
Man, what was the guy's name? Is it Thunderbird something?
Yeah,
that was something, huh?
Oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad.
It was a very unique experience.
Not to mention, they started with Heyman, which is great, but he similar to what we were talking about with the wrestling. He popped everybody so much that the rest of it didn't stand a chance.
I felt bad. I like Bull Nakano, and I felt bad because following Paul Heyman,
dude, everybody
not
left.
Being a native English speaker, it's like, oh my God. You know
Half the people were gone. Like there was staff trying to get people to sit in seats that were on the hard cam or away from the hard cam so that it looked like there were more people there. As soon as Paul Heyman got done, it was a mass exodus.
Yeah.
But it was such a good promo. And when I don't know if I doubt you guys could hear it because it bleeps, but if you don't think that ECW has anything to do with today's world, you can suck my fucking dick.
I can read lips pretty good. I'm not gonna.
Watching Randy Orton on the side, laughing his ass off, looking over at Triple H. Oh my God, I've never laughed like that. Because he is just literally like losing it, and everybody else is kind of like, well, I don't know how Triple H is going to react to that, but Randy is just losing it. It's great, so good.
But they had to know that Paul Heyman was going to be the person that everybody was staying to see. Like, why wouldn't they leave that till the end?
Because he was the first inductee, and that's what they wanted. They wanted him to go first because he is the first inductee that was completely inducted by Triple H, which I get. But my God, it was a mass exodus. Like there was just everybody, nobody cared, and we're in Philly now. Granted, it wasn't all Philly people because a lot of people were from out of state and out of country, but there's so many people who was just like most of those people. Like I've watched Bull a few times. The Wyndham, I watched them, but never like cared about them. I didn't even know about the other guy that rambled on about God for 2 hours.
I don't think anyone knew who that guy was. He seemed to be a good promo in his day.
Yeah, in his day, it seemed it would be fantastic.
Maybe not today.
No, not today. And then Rock's grandmother, great and everything, but you're basically there. It's Paul Heyman. That is the headliner of that class.
And like putting The Rock out there, like what is it, like 12:30?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you gotta kind of like. It's hard to picture, like, you know, I'm watching the Hall of Fame stuff at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. You know, to me it makes no difference. But it's after SmackDown at like 10:30 on a Friday. If you're gonna truck Heyman out there at 12:30 at night, man, you better be handing out Red Bulls to everybody because that crowd's gonna be tired. Like,
Yeah.
No, but
that's
he
not
could've-
just.
It's,
I
a,
mean,
it's a tough
ramped you
spot to
up.
be in. It's a tough
Could have
spot to be in.
ramped you up. He did. He ramped us up after 2.5 hours of wrestling, like just got you up and going again. So if they would have done like the Wyndham boys first, and then the Rambler guy, and then Bull, and then either Paul Heyman or the Rock's grandma, like I just think it would have like had a nice build, because it just would have been better. And it just wasn't. Like it was just that immediate peak, and then there was nothing else. Even with the Rock, the only thing good about the Rock was he talked some smack to Cody Rhodes. That was it. Like everything else
Well,
wasn't
I
really
think the rambling guy went over time, and then it screwed up that segment.
so much overtime. He just wouldn't stop. And Triple H also, like, when was it? It was like 5 years ago that people were going over in time. So Vince tried to shorten the time, and then would start playing music like the Oscars to like get them to get off the stage. And now Triple H is like, whatever. Like these people deserve it. I get that, but Jesus. It was being home watching it, Dennis. I had just been like, I don't care. That's a fast forward.
and that's kind of what it's essentially what I did. I was like, oh, fast forward to this. Thunderbird, like, I barely know the name. Fast forward. And then I'm like, oh, The Rock's out here. Wait, why is The Rock out here? Hang on, what's
You're
going
one.
on? And it's, hang on, watch it come. Oh, okay. Skip through this. Yeah, it was easy to, like, I think I watched the whole Heyman part, start to finish. And then from there on out, I probably watched another 15 minutes tops of
Lucky
segments.
bastard. It was so long.
Yeah, I had it on live, and yeah, so you couldn't fast forward. Obviously, yeah, it was rough at times.
Yeah, I couldn't fast forward either, just so you know. Just sitting there like,
I don't know. Yeah, but if I was
up.
there, I don't know. I think I would have gotten up because I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you did
because
it.
I was like, okay, something's got to happen interesting with The Rock. And also, I paid for these damn tickets. I'm going to sit through the whole thing. I'm that guy. I'm going to be there from the second I can get in there to the second I have to leave. But, that was rough. And especially, again, you just had such a high with Heyman. Like the best, he's so good at talking, and he's so good at talking from the heart, and everything about it just felt ECW. And I was just like, God damn, man, yeah, you deserve this. And you're goddamn right I do. Like, yeah, it was so good. So good. All right, now that Aaron's back, hopefully we can hear him. Aaron, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine now.
Okay.
So, favorite match of WrestleMania, what do you got?
It would be the main event, night 2, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes.
Did you pop as much as everybody else for the Rock coming out, Cena coming out, some God, I've already Solo coming out, Seth coming out, The Undertaker.
Yeah, but I'm Stone Cold. I mean, how can you not have Stone Cold?
Yeah, that was my issue. That was I have only 2 issues with the main event. One, it was overbooked like there's no tomorrow. Now I agree with Dennis. It was a lot of fun. And especially live, it was so much fun. And when that gong hit, holy shit, did that arena just go bonkers. And
I'll tell you, I'm watching my kid is like right here next to me, and my wife's on the other side. We're watching her in the master bedroom here and I'm like, oh, and here I am. I kind of like sit up my, the wife's like, should I know who this is? I'm like, you'll know who this is. Like, and of course he didn't like make the grand entrance, but
oh god,
I knew who it was. I was ready.
But yeah, but it was overbooked. Like if you think of Cody finishing his story, and I know it was a Bloodline Rules match, but it probably would have been better for his character, even though this does save Reigns a little bit. Like to win it cleanly and like officially. But it was a lot of fun. But if you were gonna overbook it, yeah, how do you not have Austin?
I think one thing on that, like most of the matches that could have had interference didn't. Like for example, Io versus Bayley, she has a whole stable behind her. They all could have come out and it was all clean.
Yep.
Like, and there are other examples, maybe Sammy and Gunther.
Yep.
So I think that it's like they saved it all for that.
Yeah, which again, that's not a bad thing. It's just if you're gonna overbook it, you should have Austin. Like you could connect that story very easily with Cena Solo, Rock, Cena, Austin, Rock. Like
And
it's
I'll just
very
throw out
easy.
like it sucks that it couldn't happen, but Dustin should have been there in the match.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to
Like
disagree
it's
with that.
crazy that his brother couldn't be there, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's one of those things, especially now with everything going on with Punk and Tony and that stupid all out footage or all in footage, one of them.
I will tell you that like whoever just made that point, I didn't pick up on that. Really, every other match was clean.
Yeah.
Until the last one.
I don't know if it was
And-
ever, but most.
But
So
it's seemingly pretty good. Which is, but I just like as somebody said that, I think back to like the dying days of WCW when every stupid match had something dumb happening, like somebody else running out, and you're just like, I don't know what's happening anymore.
But at least it made sense because there was no disqualification, similar to like the triple threat match with Orton, Logan Paul, and Kevin Owens.
Kevin Owens.
Yeah. Like they had that guy that's a part of Logan's podcast or whatever, Shorty, Swifty, I don't know his damn name. So they had him like, and they had some weapons, so that made sense. You've got the bloodline rules, it makes sense, so it's not overbooked in that sense. But I mean, it's overbooked in the sense of you had Solo, you had Seth, you had Cena, you had Rock, you had Undertaker. That's 5 more people. That's a lot.
But I guess it's like it's overbooked, but at least everything else, either
Agreed.
in the day or even the night before, wasn't exactly overbooked either. You weren't overtired of being overbooked. But
Correct.
like that goes along. If you're gonna overbook something, damn well better make it the main event. Like
Yeah. And do
of
one
WrestleMania 40 at that. Like
yeah.
Do
One
it.
and done. One and done. Like so there was a little bit of interference in the US match, but again, no DQ. The rest of them, I agree. I don't think there was any outside interference that I can really recall.
But even the US one, that's becoming Logan Paul's thing, right? Like
Yeah.
who's in the suit?
Yes.
Who's in the suit? Like who's gonna get beat up this time? And it's always somebody I have no idea who they are because I'm too old to care. But that's his thing. So I guess I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, and I don't call that overbooked for having one person, but when you have like 2, 3, 4, 5, that's overbooked. But if you're going to do it, as you said, let's do it just a one and done. Let's make it the main event. Let's make everybody pop like there's no tomorrow. It's funny too, because so I went and saw The Undertaker on Thursday for his one-man show, which was great. He just told stories from the road. Some of the crowd sucked in general just because they kept shouting out shit, and he doesn't have great command of the audience like he does in WWE. Whatever he's doing, everybody shuts up or oohs and ahs. When he's doing a one-man show, everybody's just screaming out things like a bunch of morons. But he was great. Like hearing the stories was great. And then he showed up for night 2, and he was up in like one of the suites, one of the boxes, like around 117, and he did the taunt and he did everything else. So we knew he was there. Had no idea that he was gonna, come down or was hiding under the ring, wherever the hell he was. I saw the video afterwards of somebody took a video of him like running off with security, which I thought was hilarious because he was like, "Oh shit, I gotta go."
Yeah, he was showing his age in that clip.
A guy with 2 bad hips and bad knees trying to run. Yeah, I can feel that.
I think he got the hips replaced. He should be good to go. He should probably have another match.
You don't want that. As much as I want that, I don't want that.
No, the only match I'd want was him and Sting, and it would have to be a cinematic. But Sting just had his like a hell of a last match back in early March, middle March, whatever it was, against the Young Bucks, and that was fine. But it wasn't what it should have been. Him and Undertaker. I saw him. They had a Sting Q&A that I attended. And he talked about like that's the only match that he would have wanted, and now that they're both retired, it's not going to happen. But that's like the one that he wishes could have happened, which I think we all do, especially at that time where they were teasing it. How do you bring him into WWE and not do the match? Like, come on! How do you fumble the ball that fucking bad? So Amber and Aaron never been to Mania.
No.
No.
Okay. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. Even if it's not, I spent too much money because
How
I
much?
am irresponsible. I probably, and now this is everything. That's including hotels, driving, tolls, Ubers, food, going to WWE World, going to WrestleCon, getting autograph from Hulk Hogan, which was stupidly expensive. Taking a bunch of photos with wrestlers, doing all that shit, probably around 6K. But that also put me on the floor at WrestleMania. I was about like 15 rows back on the floor, could see everything. For both nights, I was up one section for SmackDown, NXT, and Raw by the entrance, but you could literally see everything, and it was kind of perfect. So yeah, I would say all in all about 6K a person is what I spent. Not telling anybody to spend that, but I'm stupid. And it's
Yeah,
also
just for the record, I did 3, and I don't think I spent that much. So
well,
also inflation. So
yeah, there is
Wait,
inflation.
it's been a few years.
you spent 2.25 wrestling rings.
Damn it! I could have 2 wrestling rings. I could have a war
You
game.
could be in the ring. You could be wrestling The Rock right now.
I could have a war games. Now I could take two wrestling rings and that other half of a wrestling ring by a cage. Come on now, this is now I got to start thinking more.
And we did not spend in 18. What was that? What 2002?
Yeah.
2002. It was not nearly as that much.
We
probably spent. We probably spent. Now we did. Now again, things have changed, right? It's 2 nights. There's all fun stuff. In 18, they had WrestleMania Access, ACCESS Access, the night before. So that was like your, hey, here's that Andre the Giant statue. Here's his handprint. Here's all some cool stuff. They had some matches. We actually got to see Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar. Randy Orton beat, I think it was Bob Holly, and I think Brock Lesnar just squashed Crash Holly. And we were like, oh yeah, he did an F5 to Crash Holly. Who can't? But we got to see them. They wrestled some matches the night before, so we actually saw them before they debuted on Raw soon after. So that was kind of fun. So we had those tickets, we had the WrestleMania tickets, and obviously the hotel was. So it was like we left on Friday, got there. Yeah, that was way less money. 22 years ago.
So let's see. I got there. I went to Dolph Ziggler's and his brother's comedy show on Wednesday, which was great. It's called Hunkamania, and they're very funny. And I also didn't realize it was going to be other people with them. I just thought it was those two, but there were other people, and they were great. Thursday we did an ECW tour. I got to go see the old ECW arena, which was a lot of fun. Then we went and did WWE World, which is what used to be Access because The Rock was going to be there. Got to do a lot of photo ops, see a bunch of shit. You could get in line for autographs, but I didn't really care that much for as long as that line was. Then we did the Undertaker show that night. Then we did the Sting Q&A that late night. Friday was the first day of WrestleCon with a bunch of older wrestlers that aren't in WWE anymore. Then a bunch of photos with like Trish and Lita, the Hardy Boys, Ron Simmons, Teddy Long, Scott Steiner, DDP. There's more that I'm getting. Ronda Rousey, Sting, just a ton. And then we went to SmackDown that night, and then Hall of Fame. Then Saturday was WrestleCon Day 2. Then NXT. Then we went to the casino because it was only 2 doors down. Took a lot of the casino's money and took a lot of their drinks. And then did WrestleMania Night 1 because why spend money on booze at the arena when you could just get it for free at the casino? Then Sunday We did WWE World again, where we got the Ronda Rousey, not Ronda, excuse me, the Hulk Hogan autograph. Then we did something else. I'm blanking on what it was. Then we did the casino again. Had more drinks. Highly recommend.
That's why you're blanking on what it was.
Then WrestleMania Night 2. Then on Monday, we had a buddy come down and we all went to this indoor mini putt place, which if you guys are ever in Philly, it's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. Then if you haven't guessed, we went back to the casino, took more of their money and more of their drinks, and then went to Raw, which was awesome. And then because Uber prices were triple what they normally are, we went back to the casino, and that's my story. I gave all my money back to the casino that I won from them. So I shouldn't have gone back again, but I did get a lot of free drinks. And then I had to drive my ass home. So it was a blast. It was worth the money. It's worth it if you guys can go. You don't have to do this crazy shit I did or the crazy shit that I'm planning for WrestleMania 50. I'm going back in 10 years. That's not a question. It's going to happen. WrestleMania 50, I don't care where it is. That shit, I'm already starting to save. So I definitely recommend going, even just to be there. So some of the issues, I don't know if you guys faced it, Dave or Dennis, when you guys were there. Like some of the crowd sucks. Like they're just standing the whole time and you can't see certain things, or they're holding signs and you can't see certain things. But for the most part, you can see, and most of the crowd is fine. But sometimes you're not even there for the matches. Like the matches are great, and they are, but you don't see everything like you do on TV. So you're really there to kind of just experience the liveness of it, of 72 or 73,000 people going apeshit over the nerdy thing that you love, where there's literally no judgment from anybody because you guys are all the same nerds. Everybody in that crowd, from like the 2-year-olds to up to the 90-year-olds, people that were there, everybody's just a giant nerd loving it.
Yeah, I think wrestling. I mean, I've been to like other more regular like shows, right, and more regular sized arenas, like Raw and SmackDown. But like it's different when you go to WrestleMania because usually it's mostly hardcore fans. The crowd tends to be more passionate, louder. It's just different.
Yeah, I'll say night 1 was cold as shit. And it was like 40 degrees and super windy. WWE was using the ring that they used for that Mania that you went to, Dave, which actually has heat pumping from the corners for the wrestlers in the ring, so they're not freezing. They designed that for when they went to MetLife. So they had that going that night, and the crowd was like okay loud, but not super loud. And I saw a bunch of complaints on it online.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm sure it's a lot of people that aren't from the northeastern U.S., right? And so
yes,
they're not used to that.
No, but night 2 was like 60, 65 degrees up until around like 10 p.m. before it dropped low and got a little windy, and the crowd was losing their minds. Granted, Sunday was a better show. Saturday was fine, but Sunday was a better show all around. But the crowd was going bonkers, and when you have an open arena like that, obviously sound escapes, but it didn't sound like any sound was escaping because people were going nuts over everything, especially that Undertaker thing was so loud. And we were all freaking out and cheering and laughing and being like, holy shit, being a little pissed off it wasn't Austin. But yeah, I highly recommend, even if you got to sit up in the nosebleeds. Like if they ever come to Maine, they're never coming to Maine for WrestleMania. But if they ever did and like tickets were $10,000, I'd be like, okay, cool. Is the cheapest price like $100 and I'll sit where I can't see anything? Great. I'll just do that. Because there's just, it's just so good. Highly recommend. Put it on your bucket list. Go do that shit.
Did they announce where next year was going to be? I know normally they do video packages, but
yeah, I hadn't seen anything. I haven't watched WrestleMania back, so if they didn't show it during the show, that's normally when they do it. They didn't show it to us at all. I've heard Minneapolis, but then I've also heard that they are looking at doing it overseas. But I have not heard yet officially or seen anything officially.
I don't remember seeing anything.
which is weird because I mean, again, these were all under Vince, but you always knew the next year's WrestleMania because that's how I knew I was going to go to Philly. Last year's WrestleMania, they're like, we're going to Philly. I was like, me fucking too. I've been there numerous times to see the Eagles. My buddy lives right around there.
They announced something going to Cleveland. Is that SummerSlam or Rumble?
SummerSlam.
So I know that went through our guy chat, of Kevin and Bill and myself, a couple other guys are like, hey, let's take the drive to Cleveland and go see SummerSlam. Like,
do it. Should be a good card from the rumored card, but who knows what happens between now and then. The only thing I'll say is the sooner you can go, the better, just in general for prices, because with TKO taking over, like I've tried to go to UFC and it used to not be that bad, and now it's crazy to try to go. And Mania is getting there too. It's definitely not something that you're just like, oh, on a whim, let's just go. Unless you're waiting till like the last day and hoping that every ticket drops. Because there were a couple people in front of us that bought their tickets like 2 weeks before off like StubHub or something, and they spent significantly less than I did. But they got lucky that those seats were available and somebody was just trying to get rid of them. But you never know. And I'm too much of a planner for that shit. As you could tell by all these podcasts, like, hey, we're going to do a podcast in 6 months. You guys ready? But anyway, Mania's great. Go. Best trip I've ever done, without question. I've done a lot of trips with a lot of friends, and this takes the cake. It's just wrestling, and the nostalgia and everything was just kind of perfect. Again, highly recommend. So let's wrap this up because I know Dennis is going to go put the kiddos to bed. So closing thoughts. We'll start with Aaron. Closing thoughts on WrestleMania, on WWE, where it goes from here, and all that stuff.
Well, obviously, next year, Rock versus Cody Rhodes. Obviously, that's the seed they planted. I think with Triple H in charge, I mean, his mind, I mean, it's going to continue to get better, me personally.
I hope you're right. I really do. As Dennis mentioned, you never know. Like, it could go the other way with that pendulum going back where he screws something up, which could happen. But right now, he seems to be willing to listen to people, which is a huge difference compared to Vince. And just some of the camera angles that they're trying. He talked about it during the press conference where he's talking about like taking ideas from a lot of different people, but you never saw those camera angles before of how they did their shots of walking through the cameraman walking through the entrance and showing the crowd and showing the ring from far away, or coming in from one of the upper decks where the crowd is to show the crowd and show everything else. You never got those shots. So definitely seems like he's more interested in those.
I'll put one note on the cameras. Because you mentioned cameras, that reminded me. Whatever camera they're using when they're in the ring with doing the champion announcements. Okay, listen, I'm not like a TV guy. Like, I could tell you 1080p versus 4K versus whatever camera that is looks fantastic when they're in the. I don't know if it's just that, if they're doing something special with like a filter, or if they're that better of a camera. But when they were announcing the champions, like doing the intros within the ring, like that was just something I'm like, wow, that looks great. I was just taken aback by how, just like thinking back to just like I don't expect that from pro wrestling, but here we are with these like super fancy cameras, and like, man, just the video quality is amazing.
Well, it makes a difference when you don't have the same people going, like, it needs to look exactly the same all the time, and this is how the product needs to look, rather than being like, how do we make this new and interesting? How do we get people to go like you? Holy shit, that's a good camera angle, or that's a good filter, or this looks like damn good. You need that, and you need those people to say like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? And not just shooting everything down and being like, okay, let's try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, okay, nope, we're not doing it again. That's sometimes the best way you can figure out what your crowd will like. And that's one of the things I like too. That promo that they did with CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, and Seth Rollins from a few weeks back on Raw was absolutely phenomenal. I loved every second of it, especially Punk. Drew McIntyre's like, I'm the chosen one, and Punk being like, oh, you're the chosen one. Who chose you? what upstanding citizen, what virtuous person chose you, was hilarious. I had watching Drew stop himself from laughing, but hearing afterwards that they didn't have like a scripted promo, they had certain bullet points they need to hit. That's very similar to what it used to be in the Attitude Era. You had like, you got to talk about the next pay-per-view. You got to talk about your opponent. Do it. And like, it just gives them more freedom, which I feel like a lot of these people, if they can get into their characters, that's how we got the amazing promos we used to get with Rock, Austin, Taker, Triple H, HBK, yada, yada, yada. Like, you don't get that when you're just scripting everything out.
Yeah, I mean, I never cared about Drew McIntyre his whole career, last like few months. So it can't be, I do. So it can't be coincidence.
Right. Yeah. It's just, oh God, his character is, he got lucky that Punk got hurt because he was probably going to be in like the Intercontinental title match, I would guess, against Gunther, which granted would have been a great match, but he wouldn't have got his world title shot if Punk didn't get hurt. But he used that, him getting hurt and that character of being like, it's destiny. I have to thank you for getting hurt and being so weak and yada, yada. It's so good. So good. Right now, apparently he hasn't re-signed. Hopefully he re-signs, and hopefully they do the thing with Punk, because like I'm clamoring for that whenever Punk's 100%. All right, Dave, final thoughts, wrestling in general, what do you got?
Yeah, it's nice to actually look forward to wrestling because I don't know. Aside from when AEW first came around, there was a little bit of hope there. Hasn't really felt like that in a very long time. So it's just nice to be able to look forward to it. I mean, granted, when football season starts up, how does it maintain my interest on Mondays? I don't know, but it's still nice to be able to look forward to it. It hasn't felt that way in a long time.
I've heard it's probably because of the Paul Levesque era. I don't know if you guys have heard that or
Oh,
not.
it could be.
I don't know. I don't know if you've heard it. All right, Amber, what we got? We got final thoughts from you about wrestling, WrestleMania, where we go from here?
Well, I think you guys raised some interesting points. It's nice to have Vince not screaming in everyone's ear and really micromanaging the show. Like,
hey, I'm going to interrupt you real quick because I definitely thought you were going a different direction. It's really nice not to have Vince screwing everybody, bringing him back to the office and being like, maybe you want to take a gangbang from Brock Lesnar.
No, that's what you get paid for later on, so you can afford your wrestling ring.
There it is. Sometimes you do. Wait, a man's got to do what a man's got to do.
Hey, no judgment, no judgment. I'm all for it. But no, I'm psyched to have Vince gone because sometimes it just clears the way for something fresh and new. And if what you guys are saying, like wrestling has always been about your character. So if you can make that character come to life, why do you need a full written speech? Like that's boring. That's not your voice. That's a writer's voice, like being able to actually make it your own by just incorporating their stuff is how you build stars. So that's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Dennis, what about you? Final thoughts? What we got?
I'm intrigued. I might fall back to my, I'm probably not going to watch unless my daughter wants to sit and watch SmackDown and have some popcorn on Friday nights. Who knows? SmackDown parties. I'm in. I don't know if I'm going to watch every week. I'll probably keep an eye on things. And then if something piques my interest, I'll go back. Maybe I'm going to keep an eye on the CM Punk thing, see where that angle goes. Because even after Monday, that still seems fun. I think that could be a hell of a thing, but how long is that going to, when's he getting cleared? I don't know. Maybe he is cleared sooner than later. I appreciated WrestleMania. I thought it was great. It wasn't, I want to say everything was 5 stars about it, but as a whole show, it was fun. Like it was something I can't say I've, about the last few years, like where there may have been a good match that I liked, but I kind of enjoyed the weekend. I don't know what that means going forward. As everybody says, it's a new era. We're going to do new things. Yeah. And Triple H is also bringing his guys back, right? Like, Andrade came back and then he replaced Dragon Lee in the match. I don't know if that was because of injury or what the case was, but okay. I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that. But now you can see Triple H putting his guys from NXT that he liked in positions, and that's might work out well for some people, like Karrion Kross, who kind of like was good, then nothing, and then maybe now he can be good again. And Andrade, who was great in NXT, and then didn't do much beyond that, then did absolutely zero in AEW, right? That's great. It's good for those guys. It is different faces that maybe we haven't seen, but that does also mean that there's probably some Vince guys that probably aren't going to have much of a future, right? So if one of your guys was a Vince guy, I don't know what to say. It's no knock on them. Look at Austin Theory. He was the next chosen one, and now what's he? He's a comedy tag team. That's fine. I'm sure he'll find his footing if he's, give it a couple months there, and maybe he turns into the Miz and he's around for 25 years. Who knows? Great, but I guess that's like, yeah, this is great. It's the Triple H era. Look at all this great stuff we're doing. Forget about the change that's happening over here that we're not going to tell you about, though, right? Like, it is a business. There is the other side of that coin. So I don't know what that other side means. And I'm not saying all of it's bad or all of it's good, but there is that. And that as much as we've said that this was a great show, how do you keep that momentum going through? Geez, let's just say, how do you get that going through next year? Like, you don't want to be nothing until January, and then all of a sudden you start to ramp up again. You want to be able to keep that momentum all year. So I'm intrigued. I'm not saying that he is the savior of things. I think he does probably approach things much better than Vince did, doing his, screaming approach, and it's my way or the highway, or get out. And if you want my attention, you have to get my attention, versus Triple H, it seems to be been there, done that. He's not the promoter's promoter. He's the wrestler that's now the promoter. There's lessons he's learned along the way, that he has that calming voice with people. He can definitely talk through with people. So, but you still have, I have nothing against Bruce Pritchard, but let's just say Bruce Pritchard was a Vince guy. Always was. I like his podcast. I listen occasionally. I've gone and seen him live at one of his shows. But let's not pretend that it's all gone, right? So there are still those influences that's where I guess the pessimist in me is like, I need to see how that plays right here. Day one went great, amazing. Show me day 1000. Obviously not 3 years from now, but let's see how it goes. Like, I'm not going to sit here and sing the guy's praises when I don't know, right? I don't hate what you're doing, but keep it up, and then I'll be with you.
How much were you into NXT when Triple H was running it and it was running rampant?
I wasn't.
Yeah, so he built a lot of faith with me because of how NXT went when it was first starting, and those stories with Sammy, with Neville, with Tyler Breeze, Adam Cole. There's so many. Andrade, Johnny Gargano, all the DIY stuff, Kevin Owens and Sammy's stuff. He built up so much faith with me, that I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt. Like, obviously I'm still a little bit pessimistic, just because of how many times we've all been screwed by, like, wrestling's really good. Oh, that was one show. Damn it. Because they can sometimes pull lightning out of a bottle one time, and it's you need the consistency. And I feel like the last month and a half, maybe even longer, has been phenomenal. But again, it's leading up to WrestleMania. It should be. Can you keep that going is a very good question. I have more faith in it with Triple H at the helm than Vince, but there's a lot of hours of wrestling. You're talking about 5, 6, 7 hours, I think, between all programmings, 6 or 7, let alone their new TV show, Speed, which is, I think, just supposed to be on, like, TikTok or Facebook Reels or wherever the hell it is. It's dumb as hell, in my opinion, that they're just going to have these matches that are super quick because people don't have attention spans and whatever.
And let's not forget that look at all the storylines from WrestleMania. They're all done. Every single one of them. Becky is not going to re-challenge for the world title from Rhea. She's going to get a new opponent. Obviously, it looks like it's Liv based on.
You don't think
Monday's action.
Gunther will go back after Sammy?
Gunther's getting moved up. He was done in the IC title. His next step is starting to elevate upwards.
I agree. He's going to elevate upwards, but who do you put him against? Because, like, if he doesn't go after the title again and have Sammy win again, who do you put him at? I agree. He should be.
If you have him go after the title again, are you gonna have him lose?
You can put him in a triple. You can put him in a triple threat with him.
I think he's done with that title. He proved what he wanted to do. His next step, honestly, would be to go forward. Just push him up into the upper tier. And does he have to work his way there? I don't know if you could put him in another IC battle where he doesn't win. If he doesn't win, then he doesn't look stronger.
Right.
So you need to build him up to make him look stronger, and the only way to do that is forward.
I just don't know if there's a good face out there for him to face.
Right. So I think that's what I'm saying. What's next for a lot of these people? Well, what's next for Damian Priest? Well, I guess one of the Usos that won on Monday. Okay, that's probably going to be a one-off, right? It's not going to be a multi-month feud, probably.
It'll be 1 or 2 months max.
How long does Priest hold the title? Is he just a transition guy? Maybe. Cody Rhodes. What's next for Cody Rhodes? Okay, who's going to be the next guy? Okay, technically you don't know. I mean, I expect Roman to be gone for a little while.
Roman is supposed to be taking time off.
If you ask me, he's not coming back for a bit.
SummerSlam, I would guess.
Yeah, I could bring him back now he's your Lesnar. Bring him back when you need that guy to come back and kick some shit. So everything ended. Now you're starting new. And some of those are like, man, I have no problem with Liv Morgan. But really, is that going to be the feud that Becky and Rhea had? No offense to Liv, but is she on that level? It's okay. Is that going to keep your interest as much as the other one? Well, no, maybe that's not as great. It's Triple H's people.
Damn it, Dennis! Why are you bringing me down?
This is how I see things, right? This is my brain. I never can just accept things at face value. I have to deconstruct them. Listen, I watched Mystery Science Theater for too long, so now I watch a movie and I make fun of the movie the entire time instead of watching the movie. This is just how it works. So again, now I have to see. I guess the only feud that really didn't end was Drew and Punk.
Yeah.
That's like the only thing that's good, because it didn't actually happen at WrestleMania. It is
ramping up though. It's really
right.
Good.
So that one is like great. There's your one rock is that's not going anywhere. That's a feud. For everybody else, holy crap, everything changed. Look at all the titles that changed. I mean, with the exception of the US, like almost everything changed hands beyond the women's.
Yeah, women's and the US, everything else did change. Yeah.
So now you've split up the tag titles again. So now we're gonna have tag divisions again. Okay, that's something new. Instead of the unified champions that we've had forever. I don't know. I guess that's where I got to see what happens next, right? It's just there's a lot of changing the guard at this point, and I don't know if those storylines are going to be as good as the ones you've just had. And I don't know. It's a lot of people that are going around. Again, we talked about The Rock being just a draw, no matter where he is. So I'm gonna kind of keep my ear to the ground and I'll watch the Twitters or whatever it is, and watch the highlights. And then if something's interesting, I'll tune back in. But as far as like a week to week, I don't know if I have that yet. This isn't 1998 anymore, where I can't miss. So.
I think for me, it's probably going to be can't miss for the next month or so, just because I'm still riding the high. But it could peter out. What's that, Aaron?
You got Money in the Bank. Gunther wins Money in the Bank.
I don't like Gunther winning Money in the Bank. I don't. I'd rather Gunther just be a one-on-one match where he beats the hell out of somebody and wins. I don't like the idea of him cashing in unless he does like an RVD thing and says like, hey, next month at the main event of this pay-per-view, you and I are going to have a match. Like, even though that's more of a face thing to do than a heel, like, I just don't like the idea of Gunther running in and cashing in something like after
I would say McIntyre is a good candidate
for Money in the Bank.
because he just lost with to it. Now he could win with it. Maybe.
I don't feel like he needs it, but especially because I assume like the feud with Punk is coming.
That's true.
Guess
he gets with it.
Somebody said something. I don't know what somebody said.
I said R-Truth.
Oh,
that would be hysterical. It's never gonna happen. Although they did make Otis win once, which was stupid. And I like Otis. Otis was there, by the way, at the Dolph Ziggler comedy show, hammered off his ass, got up on stage, and was telling stories, and it was hilarious. Huge dude in person, huge. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go. We've got Backlash, or I think it's Backlash next, which is supposed to be from France. I think the first time going over to France, so maybe they do some stuff there. Last year they did Puerto Rico, I think, for Backlash, and it was awesome. We had Damian Priest versus Bad Bunny, which should have not been a good match, but it was. Maybe that was 2 years ago. I don't remember. Was last year. Okay.
Yeah, well, that one was just fun though, because then you had Savio Vega come out and Carlito came out, and I was like, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. So maybe over in France, I don't know who the hell's like old French wrestlers from back in the day. La Resistance.
Rene Dupree.
That's La Resistance.
That's Quebec. That's not France.
Hey, man, I don't want to talk about that. But yeah, so who knows what they do to pull out all the stops. But I'm definitely, I usually always try to watch the PLEs. So weird to call them that instead of pay-per-views. I usually try to watch those just because I have Peacock anyway, so I'll usually put it on. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. And my buddy, it's funny, he's like, you have Peacock, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, they have all the old stuff on there? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, I might have to start watching this again. So sometimes you ride that high. I don't know how long the high will last for me or for everybody else after Mania. But I'm going to enjoy it. It's fun to watch wrestling right now. It's been a while. It's been a while since it's been fun. And I don't know how the Raw played, Raw after Mania, but I know the last 5 years, the Raw after WrestleMania sucked to watch. I don't know how it was for you guys for this one. I haven't watched it yet. But live, it was amazing. Even though that first segment was 45 minutes, it was amazing. So having moments like that where it's like, okay, I can just sit here and watch this all day. I'm hoping we can carry that forward. Fingers crossed. Yeah. All right. Anybody have anything closing before I wrap this thing up? Are we good? Everybody's happy? Okay. Well, thank you guys all for being here. It was great to talk to you all again. I'm sure we'll plan another one. I do not have a plan for the next one because I'm not going to Mania anytime soon. But I'm sure like another crazy event will happen or something that gets all of our juices flowing. We go, hey, let's do another podcast. But again, thank you guys. Aaron, thank you for joining us for the first time and giving your thoughts on GWF and WrestleMania. Dave, it was good to see you again. I'm lying, it wasn't. Amber, always a pleasure. Dennis, you've been with me since the start with these. Thank you. It's just been a lot of fun. Always good to reminisce with you people. Yeah, and we'll see everybody on the next one, whenever that is.